Hello everyone, Andreas Libbering, Senior Consultant at PatentSite. Very happy to host this webinar today with Julian. Today we're going to have a look at patent analytics with LexisNexis PatentSite with a special focus on robotics. So let's I think I have to click here. So let's have a closer look at robotics and the characteristics of these fields. It's not only valid for robotics, but all kinds of fields have gone through the same changes in last year. So you had these well-established value chains until like 10, 20 years ago, where all the industries were focused on itself. You didn't have to look to the right or to the left. But for example, and especially in robotics or classic machinery, you were focused on your own technology fields. But now that we face like this huge trend of digitalization, thank you, difficult word, digitalization, we see that all these well-established value chains, they merge, and we see a new global interconnected ecosystem. So for example, if you think about the smartphone, you see this technology in a car, you see this technology in the chemistry, in medicine, and the same we see with robotics. You see that in the car manufacturing, you see this for example, in the medicine, in pharma also. So the whole picture, like the whole ecosystem gets more interconnected, and you really today have to look to the right and to the left to actually see what's relevant there and where's relevant technology. And a great way to do this is looking at patent information. Also, we see an increase in importance of intangible assets. So while in 1975, more than 80% of the S&P 500 market capitalization derives from intangible assets, we see that this increased a lot. This changed a lot until the year 2015, where almost 90% derive from intangible assets, just like patents. So we see on the one hand side, patents can give you a really good information about what's going on to the left or to the right of you. On the other hand side, we see more and more patents, and that they're getting more and more important. So the question is, how do I identify relevant players, relevant technology in this huge haystack of more or less important patents? And that's where PatentSite comes into account, helping you there. So I'll give you a quick overview on what we do at PatentSite, how we solve this problem of this huge haystack of patents you can derive meaningful and valuable information from. So what we first do is collect worldwide patent data. Our main data source is the European Patent Office. We also retrieve information from the USPTO and JPO. All of this information, by the way, it's important to say that, of course, all the major patent offices worldwide deliver or provide information to the European Patent Office. So we are here assessing worldwide patent data. So all this information forms our PatentSite database, which currently includes more than 100 million patent documents. And what we documents is the right word to say here, because what we do then is we group these documents, these single documents, in patent families. So as you all probably all know, a patent is a territorial right. So when you want to protect the technology, both in, for example, China and US, you have to file a patent there. And what we're basically doing is collecting all these documents worldwide, describing one invention, and assign them into one patent family. Then we conduct two very, very crucial steps before actually evaluating patents and being able to show you where the most valuable patents are and who the players are who own these most valuable patents. The first thing is we check for the legal status of patents. So we can tell you whether a patent is active today or not. Also, we track this legal status over time, which gives you the possibility to let's say, travel back in time to have a look at how a portfolio looked like 5 years ago, 10 years ago. The next step we conduct is checking who the ultimate owner, who the actual owner of a patent is. So I guess most of you already have worked with patents, so you know how painfully difficult it can be to determine who the ultimate owner is. So you have weird company structures, you have different applicant names, you have translation errors, for example, from Chinese patents. Also take into account M&A activity and reassignments of patents. So this is a lot of work we put into this, and we have a dedicated team sitting here in Bonn and also internationally located, who are doing nothing else the whole day than to setting up these company structures, assigning different applicant names, subsidiaries to one ultimate owner. So to give you the possibility to go into our system, search one specific owner, and make sure and be sure that we considered all relevant applicants and subsidiary. And imagine you had to do this going, for example, to SBASnet or from the USPTO, collecting all the data. This would take you forever, and some clients already also told us that they can save up to 2 man-years a year by the work we're providing here. All right, and then we actually come to the point where we evaluate patents, where we give patents a business value. So our indicator for the business value is the competitive impact. The competitive impact is built on 2 indicators, which have shown high correlation in scientific literature with the actual value of a patent. We have technology relevance and market coverage. Technology relevance is a citation-based indicator. So what we do here is we count the number of citations a patent received from later citations. So we're looking at forward citations. We're not only taking this number of citations a patent received, we also apply some corrections here. We apply for patent office practices because, for example, the USPTO cites more often than other patents and than other patent offices. So of course you have to account for this. We account for the age of a patent, so we correct for the age of a patent, simply because a patent which is longer alive, which is longer visible, can receive more citations. And what we also do, we correct for the technology field. A patent is assigned to, simply also because we see different citation practices in different technology fields. What we always do within our entire approach is we benchmark patents against each other. So all the numbers you see in our BI are relative numbers, and for the technology relevance, that means we always benchmark patents or the number of citations received due to all other patents in the same age class and in the same technology field. So I'll give you a really quick, easy example. Imagine you have one patent which received 10 citations, and all the other patents in the same age class and in the same technology field received 5 citations. Then we benchmark the 10 to the 5. That would be a technology relevance of 2. So to put that in words, this patent is, from a technological point of view, twice as relevant as the average patent in our database. The second indicator is the market coverage. I already said a patent is a territorial right, so it's also the market size, this technology or this patent family protecting is important to evaluate the actual business value of a patent. What we do here is we do not simply count the number of countries a patent is active in. We weigh those countries, and we weigh them by their gross national income. So we take the gross national income as a proxy for the market size. Once again, we have a benchmark here. So what we do is we take the sum of all gross national incomes of those countries a patent family is active in, and we benchmark this to the gross national income of the United States of America, simply because this is the biggest economy at the moment. So an easy example here as well. I have a patent which is only protected or filed active in the United States, take the gross national income of the United States divided by the gross national income of the United States, would be a market coverage of 1. So this patent is protecting a market equivalent to the market size of the United States of America. Another example, I have a patent only filed or active in Germany. Germany has like a quarter of the market size of the United States, would be a market coverage of 0.25. And now imagine you have a patent or patent family which is both active in the United States and in Germany. That would be a market coverage of 1.25. And then we combine both indicators by multiplying them to get to the competitive impact. We multiply for several reasons. I think the most obvious one is to make sure that patents which are inactive today, which are not protecting any market, receive no business value, because if you multiply something by 0, the result is still 0. Then we're more into the evaluation of patent portfolios, where the patent asset index comes into consideration. The patent asset index is just the summation of all competitive impact of those patent families which lie within portfolio, for example, a corporate portfolio or a technology portfolio. So the patent asset index is our indicator for the absolute or total strength of a patent portfolio, while the competitive impact or the average competitive impact is rather an indicator for the quality or average quality of a portfolio. All right, so let's jump into the software, and I hand over to Julian again.
Thank you, Andi. Okay, so let's get to our question today. What kind of relevant information can we get out of patent data? And I think usually that starts with the question of, okay, how do we define a technology field? That question has actually been answered for us, because we actually use technology fields predefined by the Swiss Patent Office. So the Swiss Patent Office in Europe, relatively well known. They offer searches for customers, and we work together with them. And so they have provided us with a technology field which is called robotics. We have a definition for it. And for example, it does not include parts of autonomous driving or self-guided or automated devices and machines. So we're looking at engineering involving conception, design, manufacture, and operation of robots. And so let's start out with this technology field, and maybe the first question would be, okay, what's the activity of worldwide patent filings in our technology field? So we're looking currently at almost 300,000 patent families, and we can see since 1990 how many patent families have been filed per year. We also can split this up into the current legal status. So one of the things that Andreas already mentioned is that we always calculate the legal status for patents. And so what we can see is that there has been a steady increase here over time since the early 2000s, but it has really exploded since, let's say, 2010, 2011. So robotics has become more and more important. And again, we're talking worldwide patent data. So this is the filing year. This is how much activity was there per year. Here at PatentSite, we always want to take a look at, okay, how do things look at if we're actually looking at active patents over time. And so for this, we have what we call the reporting date. The reporting date shows you only the active patents, which would be the gray line, per year, and it also shows you the patent asset index over time. So basically, you're getting a different perspective on this filing activity, because we're not necessarily looking at the activities per year, but we're actually seeing, okay, what's being kept alive, and in a way, of course, also what's discontinued in terms of patents. And also here we see, based on this more and more activity starting in 2010, 2011, that this has really increased, and so has the patent value of these patents. So very important, not only do we have more and more filings, more and more patents, but we also have more and more value that's in these patents. That doesn't always happen. So we can actually see this here looking at our reporting date. So what would be another question? Another question would be, okay, how does this look like if we're talking worldwide robotics? Let's have a look at this. So the chart up here are the active countries where the patents are currently active in. And we see that this is a currently dominated US, but mostly China. So very important, we can see that China is already very important in the patent landscape in robotics, because most patent families today are active in China. Now, if we switch this around, if we're not talking about where are the patent families currently protected, but where are they coming from? Where were they originally filed? Where was the priority filing? We can actually see that China is even, you can see the color, it's dark red. Even more patent families are coming from China. So China already a very active player, but this is to look at robotics today. So maybe we'll again put this into a trend chart. So how does this look like over time? So what we're doing now is putting again our reporting date here as the x-axis. So we only look at active patent families per year, and we can now see, okay, where are the patents active in over time? And now you can see that what we just saw, that China is becoming, or is already very important. That has been a very in a trend which started maybe around 2007, 2008, right? So there used to be other countries, like for example Japan or Germany, which are still quite strong if we're talking overall patent asset index, but we can see that China has actually passed them already in 2013. So you can see how much value we have protected in China over time. Now let's take a look at the portfolio size. So the number of patents, well, this was the patent value. Let's look at actual patent families. And now we're seeing that China has by far the most patent families protected in this. So this is something that we saw already in the map, but this is again showing this in our line chart. So if you compare the two sides, we can see, okay, value-wise, the US is still number one as of right now. It looks like the Chinese will pass them as well. But if we're talking number of patent families, we can see that China has already passed them a couple of years ago. So yeah, robotics, like many other technologies, China has become more and more important over time, and in many ways is already challenging the US as one of the top countries.
Maybe one thing we could mention here, instead of looking at the absolute numbers in these charts here, what we can always do is calculate the shares. That's one thing I really like. So if you just go to the chart settings and simply click on this this tick box here, select that one, then it loads. And what we're going to see is now in relation to all the other countries, where most of the patents protected, and that gives you, I would say, a much nicer view. It gives you a better idea what's actually happening, because you can actually see here that China is growing faster than the entire field. We could also do this here, changes here, but I think you can clearly see this from here already. So
can you a reading example?
Yeah, for example, I'll give you a reading example. So while in 2010, out of how many patents were there in total? Maybe we should give you a reading example for the current year. So we have for the current reporting date, we have like 160,000 patent families, and out of these 97, or let's say 98,000 roughly, are active in China, and this accounts for 61 yeah, 62% of all patents in that field. Always keep in mind that a patent family can be active in multiple jurisdictions, multiple authorities. So these numbers do not add up to 100%, but 62% of all patent families in that field are also filed in China. Not necessarily only filed in China, but also filed in China. And yeah, I really like this chart because yeah, it gives you measures in relation to the entire field. What is already interesting to look at.
Okay, now let's get to the business side of things. Like, who are the companies which are investing and working in this technology field? So let's take everything. Let's take a look at all the patents that are in robotics and split them up according to who owns them. And as Andreas already said, we put a lot of effort into this. We clean up applicant and assignee names. If you work with patent data a lot, you know that this is a huge problem that everybody faces. We take into account reassignment information, and most importantly, we also include mergers and acquisitions. So we're looking now at the top 15 companies, or I don't know why I put 25, top 15 companies in our technology field. And you can basically go through them and see that these are from these countries that we already saw. So we have Johnson & Johnson. If we look at this value, we see that they have just over 430 active patent families, but they account for a lot of patent value. So these patents are protected well, and they're also being cited quite frequently by their peers. Next up would be Samsung. So Samsung has a lot more active patent families, this gray bar, but they're second in patent asset index. So even though this is a really good portfolio as well, they're not as strong as Johnson & Johnson on average. Now, number 3 already, we're talking about a Chinese company. So this is Dji Innovations. You might know them also from drones. So drones, robotics, they're heavily filing in these technologies. We have car manufacturers here. We have, similar to Johnson & Johnson, we have a medtech company in here. We also have Google. So there are many different types of companies in this robotics field. We also have, for example, Boeing, the airplane manufacturer, and we have some of these true, I would call them true robotics companies like KUKA, for example, or Fanuc here. Yeah. So many different types of companies that we're looking at. Maybe let's take a different look, and especially when we're talking about the US, if we're talking about litigation or licensing, let's take a look at some of the non-practicing entities. And what we found out relatively quickly here is, so this is something that we do, we flag non-practicing entities in our database. There isn't a true definition out there about what is an MPE, but we think we do a pretty good job. And we see that we had a lot of patents. We had, I think, 150,000 patent families, and only 300 of those are actually currently owned by non-practicing entities. And most prominently here, we have intellectual ventures. Now, so probably the biggest NPE. We have some of the other well-known NPEs here, like Interdigital, RPX, and so on. So using our software, you have all this information right there. So you could just double check, okay, how closely related are we to this technology that IV or Interdigital or RPX own in robotics. Now, I already said there are many different companies in there, many different in terms of what is the application that they're actually using robotics in. And so for that, I want to show you a matrix chart where we can kind of take a look at, okay, where are the strengths in terms of IPC classifications within these portfolios. And I think you can see right away that there are some huge differences. So for example, if we're looking at Johnson & Johnson, we're talking about A61B, so that would be surgical classifications here for these patents where they are most active in. And if we're taking a look, for example, here at DJI, it's more about the controlling of position, course, and altitude. So a different application basically within the same technology field. We also have some of the other companies like Fanuc, or for example, we have also Boeing, which is kind of active in a lot of these different IPCs, but we can also rule out something, of course, that we already kind of knew, but they're not active in surgical robots at all. Yeah. So you basically get these applications within this technology field right away here. And the easy thing that's possible is that you can now drill down into any of these. So if you wanted to know what are the 590 patents that Siemens owns within this IPC code, we could just do a drill down here and basically take a look at these 590 patent families. What I did today in order to kind of narrow our technology field down is I wanted to look more closely at these A61B patents. So I wanted to know more about surgical robotics, narrow it down. We can do a drill down, and now we have a new landscape. Yeah, so we kind of remember our top 15 players, and we recognize Johnson & Johnson and Intuitive Surgical. They're in here as well. But we have a lot of new players in here, and that's because we switched our filters. So we're not looking at robotics overall anymore, but we're now combining this with a look at A61B. So we're narrowing it down to around 7,500 patent families. Now, if we're looking at this landscape, right away you see, okay, now we have two huge players. We have Johnson & Johnson, we have Intuitive Surgical, and we have some of these smaller portfolios. Again, keep in mind that something Andreas said at the very beginning was that these are values which allow a comparison between portfolios. However, also keep in mind that the average is right around 1. So all of these portfolios that we're looking at right now are really good portfolios. So Johnson & Johnson sticks out. We already knew them. They're the #1 player that we have in terms of patent strength in the field. But all of the other companies are looking really, really good. So with some background in our applicant and corporate structures, we were aware that there are a lot of M&As going on in A61B in general, in medtech in general, but also in surgical robotics. And so one of the questions that came up was, okay, so how did these companies become so good in our surgical robotics? And so one of the questions that I looked at was, who actually is behind these patents? So basically what we can do is we drill down to a new table, and we're looking at what I called organic versus acquisitions. So organic versus acquisitions means we're looking at the applicants within this portfolio of Johnson & Johnson. And we see that we have 5, or actually we have 2 Auris applicants. But what we can see right away is that this is a portfolio which was acquired over time. So we have Ethicon Endosurgery, we have Auris and Hansen Medical. And these were portfolios that were acquired over time, and the Johnson & Johnson portfolio is actually quite small here. Yeah, we're just talking about a couple of patent families in there.
Yeah, maybe one thing to mention here, we see 2 Auris here, so I guess this is more or less the same company, right? So we do the harmonization, so we harmonize all the applicants to the ultimate owner. So we do not do like a normalization of the on the applicant level, but we do it for the ultimate owner at the end. The great thing about the software is that all the data you're looking at is active, so you can work with it. So you can click, for example, of the owner, Johnson & Johnson, go to the company info box, have a look at the key metrics, authorities where they're active in to directly get an idea, or where they have a focus on, you get an idea of key patents they own. And also I really like this slide here, where I see related companies. So I see the prior and subsequent art of Johnson & Johnson. So here I see those companies which get cited by Johnson & Johnson patents, and on the other hand side, I see those patents getting cited by or these patents which cite Johnson & Johnson patents. If you are interested in anything here, like if you want to have a look at the striker patents, which cite Johnson & Johnson in this case, you can simply click on this link here, and it directly leads you to all of the patents. So we have like this kind of activity of the data, but also you can work a lot with drag and drop. So you can take items, for example, and drag and drop them onto each other to group them. I just simply have to refresh, and then you will recognize that these bubbles here go together. There we go. So we have one bubble for hours and health, so you can do like an ad hoc harmonization. I could also drag and drop items to the filter area and then do a deep dive like this.
Okay, so what would be next? We're looking at Johnson & Johnson. We're doing now a portfolio analysis of them. Maybe relevant would also be, okay, what's in their pipeline? What's going on in terms of how many patents do they currently have? We kind of know that already. We have around 267, but let's take a look at, okay, how much is in the pipeline? And so this is also something which is very relevant to our analysis, is that you can always take a look at this legal status, and you could, for example, always narrow it down to currently pending applications or to applications which were just recently published. So what we can see right now is that they do have a lot of grants, 150 grants almost, but they also have a lot in their pipeline in terms of pending applications. So this portfolio will probably just be getting stronger and stronger over time. This is something that we can pretty much already suggest from looking at this. Now, maybe just to be sure that at the bottom of all of this, in the back, when we're looking at these graphs and charts, we're talking about patents. We're talking about patent families, and you can always narrow it down to certain patent families. And this is also where our indicator comes in. So you can identify strong patents and take a look at the top 10 or top 20 patents within the Johnson & Johnson robotics portfolio. And so for this, we have this patent viewer, I would say, where you can see all the members of the patent families here. There's always the ability to go to a PDF format. You can also see if they're granted or currently pending. And we can also search within them. So if we wanted to reclassify some of these patents, then we could actually take a look. So if we wanted to just find the ones which have robots or robotics in the claims, then we'll narrow it down to these 3 patents, and we'll see right away, okay, where did we find this, in which documents? So here it was in the Austria one. Let's put it like this. Maybe we'll find some more to include all with robotics. So using this this wildcard here. And so let's take a look. Maybe we'll have a US patent here. We have it. So you can always open up these documents, the US document, for example, go into the claims, and you'll see right away in which claim we found our keyword. So it's not only this big data analysis that you have right away, but you can also narrow it down to certain patterns. That's kind of the idea here that I want to convey. Now, maybe before we get into some questions, let's maybe also take a look at something that might be relevant. Is, for example, if you wanted to do an M&A within this technology, or if you wanted to get some of the key invention or key innovation leaders within such a technology, we can always narrow it also down to inventors. So what we have are inventors, of course, in our database. So for that, we'll just switch this around. Let's use our bubble chart, and we'll see right away, okay, Mr. Shelton has filed by far the most patent families here within our 300 patent family portfolio. You can see, you know this probably from inventor names, we have them in here a couple of times. So what we can do is we can do an auto grouping here to kind of group all the inventors that we have in this portfolio. So there's basically this ability to kind of reharmonize certain items in here or combine certain items in here as well, so that you can work with the cleanest data possible in patent fight. Andreas, do you have anything to add on our robotics field?
Maybe one thing. So now at the moment we looked a little bit what's the competitive situation of like the top players. So we're only looking at the top players. If you look at robotics, for example, with like an M&A strategic background, if you want to look for potential targets you want to acquire to, I don't know, improve your portfolio, get stronger in certain areas. We could also, I just open another sheet here and just narrow this down only to robotics. So I want to, let's have a look again. Let's have a look here at the tables, at the owner, at the main indicators. So what I'm now looking at here is when it's loaded, who are the big players? And I guess it's going to be really difficult to acquire Johnson & Johnson and Samsung, although it's only a small part of them. But if you go further down, you see other players, and of course you want to acquire those players who are specialized in that field. And therefore we have a really nice measure both for patent asset index and the portfolio size, which are called share in patent asset index and share in total portfolio size. So it's this one here, and it is this one here. So I'll just put them right behind patent asset index, so we see the reference better. Put this size here. I'll confirm. All right, and let's go a little bit down to maybe a little bit smaller players. I think even further down with a small portfolio. This one, for example, this one here. So here we only have like 180 patents. It's not the biggest portfolio, it's also not the smallest. However, we see that they arrive like almost 2/3 of their portfolio from patents which are active in the field of robotics, and more than half of the portfolio size. So probably in total they have like 360 something patents, and 180, around 180 of them are active in the field of robotics. And this can also help you to answer strategic questions on where to look at what might be interesting companies. And I'll just give you a quick reading example for this. So this Ecovax, thanks, company has, in the field of robotics, has 181 patents, and this accounts for around 50% of their total portfolio size. And these 181 patents, they have a total patent asset index of 273, and this accounts for around 65% of their total patent asset index. So a really easy and quick way to identify potential targets if you're interested in that kind of analysis and IP management tasks. You can also see the competitive impact of those patents and the technology relevance to identify valuable technology.
Thanks. Very good addition. So maybe to wrap this up, we want to have all of this in a nice presentation, of course. So everywhere you're able to export data, you're able to export images, you're able to export videos. But one thing I want to show at the very end is what we call smart reports. So at the end of the day, you're able to go into our software, look at our surgical robotics field. And what we will do for this is a 35-page PowerPoint export. We'll just select the top 10 companies. We can select the colors. Very important if you want to do this, for your management, they want to see the correct colors. We'll use the English definition, then we'll just generate a report, and it's really fast. So we'll get 35 PowerPoints for this technology field within just a couple of minutes. Let's see. It's a couple of seconds, which if you've ever done 35 PowerPoints for a project, you could wait these couple of seconds.
Yeah, definitely better than doing this on your own.
Okay, we're almost there. I know we're also running out of time. So if you can just bear with us for another minute or two. Also, I don't think there are any more questions. At least I don't see any. Okay, we're almost there. Let's just open it up right here. So we're looking now at a technology field benchmark. And what you can see is we have these charts that we previously looked at in our software in a ready-made PowerPoint. We have 35 PowerPoint slides that are basically ready to present. And also the good thing is we have the data in the back. So you could go in here and use these PowerPoint slides, change some of the names, change anything here. So this is all, you can always work with this. You have our maps in here. You have the protection strategy in here. So where are the companies protecting their portfolio? You can see right away, Samsung, no surprise, mostly in South Korea, while almost nobody else is going to South Korea. So you could have the questions on where to protect your portfolio in surgical robotics and looking at this chart. Let's go through this maybe. We have our citation overlap chart, so you can see basically who is citing whom. So one of the things we're doing at PatentSite is not only build our indicator on citations, but we think, okay, looking at citations, we can also find relevant players which are working on something similar. So for example, just a reading example here, 60% of the Stryker portfolio within surgical robotics has active prior art in Johnson & Johnson. So I think some of these charts can be very relevant and they just take a couple of minutes. And I've taken more time than we wanted to. So thank you very much. Feel free to reach out to us anytime.